This podcast is part of the Some Buddies Network. You're never alone when you've got some buddies.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we have a bit of a split up amongst us. We are talking about a Milhouse Divided, and I'm not going to divide myself. No. I'll be joined, of course, by your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How are you today, Rich?
I thought you were going to say you're dividing us for a second there. I mean, you're kind of walking us down a dark path there. We're getting divorced.
You cover the first act, I'll cover the second act, and we'll have split custody of the third.
Can I borrow a co-host? No, I'm doing fine and dandy like sour candy today, Mr. Miles, the man, the myth, the allied biscuit himself. It is Miles.
I'm hiding that under the couch as we speak. What an interesting episode we have to talk about today, and that sounds more negative than I meant it to. I did not mean to imply that this is a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination, because honestly, this is a really solid, really funny episode. In fact, this is a funnier episode than I remember it being.
Well, that and this might be the first instance where we don't really have a full reset, where they actually keep something going on beyond the episode.
Very valid observation, and something that I definitely want to talk about more, because they definitely talked about that on the DVD commentary this week, and that, of course, featured the showrunners, Bill Oakley, who has not been around on the commentary for a while, I've noticed, actually.
Busy recording on Best Darn Diddly.
He was joined by the other showrunner, Josh Weinstein, along with the director, Steve Moore, the writer, Steve Tompkins, and Matt Groening.
All right.
Something interesting about the writer of this episode, Steve Tompkins, this is the only episode in the show that he is credited as a writer on, even though Josh Weinstein himself described him as an unsung hero of The Simpsons, someone who assisted them in punching up and rewriting scripts dozens of times, who made great contributions to many of Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein's episodes, and he was actually a friend of Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, who had previously worked on The Critic with Mike Reiss, as we know, and he is also the creator of the PJs a few years later.
Dang, that's a pretty impressive resume right there, I must say. Like, that's all some pretty good marks. And there's a little nuance to certain parts of this episode that I want to bring up when we get closer to the end. But yeah, I can see a little bit of a difference in this. But anytime you can be related to Bill and Josh from a creative standpoint, especially the way that season 7 and season 8 has started off, like that's very, very impressive to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's good company to keep from a creative standpoint for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into A Milhouse Divided, which originally aired on December 1st, 1996. I can't believe we're already about to be moving into 1997. This show has just been flying by, both in our podcast numbers and in the dates of the show that we're actually reviewing. We're actually on podcast number 148 this week, Richie. We're just around the corner from 150 straight weeks of Simpsons reviews.
I think we're about to graduate to the 7th grade here. We're like halfway through our 6th grade year, I think.
Well, I think, like The Simpsons, we'll just stay in the 4th grade forever.
Yes! Wait, no. Homework!
Down with homework.
Yay!
This episode does not have a chalkboard gag like many of the season 7 and 8 episodes we've noticed. It does, however, have a brand new couch gag in which the Simpsons family runs into the living room to watch TV as we would normally see, only the color palette for Bart is way, way off. Now, this might be a bit dated due to the fact that I know that currently HD TVs do in fact have the ability to change the color contrast if you go into the menus far enough, but on older TVs, there actually used to be a color dial. And this is essentially kind of making fun of that because instead of the TV image being off, just specifically Bart's color is off. And he comes in and I believe he's glowing green. Homer goes and makes an adjustment on the TV, which causes Bart to then turn red. Finally, Homer, out of frustration, just smacks Bart, and that makes his color go normal again.
See, when you said this might be a little outdated, I thought you were going down that route with Homer smacking Bart, so good job. You threw me off there, Miles.
No, I feel like that should still very much be in style. Kids need a good whopping every now and again.
You gotta learn some respect there, young whippersnapper.
No, honestly, I was hanging out with a friend that has kids not too long ago, and their kids are little shits, and, like, there were times where I'm like, if you don't smack your kid, I'm going to. Like, they need it, and, like, it's... Smack your children, people. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I believe in a good spanking every now and then.
While wearing an onion on your belt?
Yes, yeah.
It helps
I didn't say who was
momentum.
spanking me either.
Good point, good point. So now that we've alienated all of the parents that don't believe in spanking, we'll go ahead and talk to all the parents that don't believe in eating dinner in front of the TV. Because you're wrong. That's the only place that's appropriate to do so.
For the record, I remember those days where my mother would be like, okay, we need to sit at the dining room table. And it's like, what is this table? I've never seen this before.
What's the fucking point of that? Yeah, I remember those conversations too. And it's like, are you going to be as interesting as what's on television? I don't think so.
I don't know. Or I know it's not going to be as interesting.
Right? But this one does start with the Simpsons watching TV the American way, which includes all of them sitting and staring blankly at the television screen as if they are zombified. Though Marge is not really happy with the situation. I love how it opens up, though, because it's literally Homer licking his plate clean and getting frustrated that he can't see the TV while he's licking the residue off his plate.
Marge, can't we get some clear plates? I can't see the TV.
And that's when Marge starts to nitpick and point out a lot of the negatives of eating in front of the TV as opposed to the dining room. For one thing, it's messier.
If you really wanted us to be neater, you'd serve us out of one long bowl.
You're talking about a trough. We're not going to eat from a trough. And another thing, it's only 5:15. Why are you in your underwear?
Hey, this ain't the Ritz.
You pan out in that moment to see that Bart is laying on the floor eating his dinner in whitey tighties, and I do love that what Bart absolutely just described was in fact eating out of a trough.
Well, and I think we just glossed over the moment too where, was it Marge that dropped the meatball on the floor?
I think it was somebody other than Marge, because that's when she complained. I think Homer drops the meatball, and that's what makes Marge start to complain. And then you get this epic showdown where Santa's Little Helper, Snowball 2, and Maggie are, it's kind of like got like this wild, wild west, like gunslinger vibe to it, but they're all staring at the
Mexican
meatball.
Standoff.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this might be the most unbelievable part of this entire series so far, because I own 2 dogs, and most of the time, the meatball won't even hit the floor by the time one of them is snatching it up.
But then, you don't have a giant large dog named Homer with a fork.
Yoink! He does just stab it right out of their disappointed grasps. Marge declares, though, that she's done with this watching TV while eating thing, and she's gonna go to the dining room to have a conversation, and if anybody wants to join, they are absolutely welcome. But then she walks off by herself, and we can hear from off-screen.
Hello, Marge. How's the family? I don't want to talk about it. Mind your own business.
Hey, keep it down in there, everybody! Homer yells. So this leads to a deeper conversation in Marge and Homer's bedroom later that night, when Marge asks Homer, "Is this the way you pictured married life?"
Yeah, pretty much. Except we drove around in a van solving mysteries.
Marge, however, had it pictured slightly differently. She thought of dancing and dresses and cocktail parties. And that's when she decided and basically declared, Homer, I want to throw a dinner party.
Oh, I hate having parties. The toilet always gets backed up.
I don't care if the sink shoots sludge. We're having a party.
And they go to the greatest place on earth.
I'm already going to declare it. Try to stop me. There's probably 60 of them in this episode that are the greatest joke of all time. But my God, Otto walking out of the Stoner's Pot Palace with a disappointed look on his face saying, man, that is flagrant false advertising.
Oh, I completely forgot to mention, Miles, the book or the magazine that Homer was reading in bed the night before. It was the Hot Lottery Picks. Like, what?
A lot of strategy involved in that.
Yeah, exactly. And he wants to be driving around in a van with his family solving mysteries. I mean, there's something charming about that.
He lives the dream.
Yep.
We see that the Stoner's Pot Palace is definitely not what I thought it would be. Like, my first thought would be dispensary, and then it would be, like, ceramic store, but this is more like what are those chef stores called in the mall?
I don't know. Cutlery? I don't remember what. I don't know what you're going
There's
for
like
here.
a really fancy, specifically chef store. It's like a cornerstone of every mall, which, for the younger folks listening, a mall is a large building. It's filled with a lot of other stores that pay rent in said building that got eliminated by Amazon for the most part. But they still exist. They're around. And,
corner store.
there is a store that sells high-end crap like this. Things like, for instance, a melon baller, a ravioli crimper, and a citrus zester.
Is that a real thing?
I think so. Sounds right.
We're super high end here, folks.
Of course, the standout item, an oyster mallet. Made in USA. Oh, no thank you. I get it.
Oh.
I love the animation in the next sequence when Bart and Lisa find a non-stick wok. So when they drop Maggie into it, she kind of goes back and forth sliding with absolutely zero friction, almost as if she was like in a half pipe on a skateboard.
Yeah, and gravity doesn't ever do its thing because she literally gets like the same altitude every time she goes up into the air.
It's beautifully animated though, and I've actually seen this as a GIF online. As a GIF? It's a GIF.
I think it always goes along the lines of the word gift. That's how I do it, so I just say gift.
Word. We cut back to Marge and Homer, where Marge is taken by a giant crystal punch bowl, which is like the thing that nobody ever needs. Like, people have punch bowls specifically for parties that they might throw like once every 6 years.
And didn't the last time they had a punch bowl, Homer started ogling Maud Flanders? Did that already happen, or is that a future episode? I don't remember at this point.
I think that happened so previously. Yeah, that was when Ned had his famous drink.
That's right. Yes.
Ooh, a punch bowl. That just screams good taste. Wouldn't it be perfect for the dinner party?
Which, by the way, where is that punch bowl, Miles? Shouldn't they already have a punch bowl then?
I don't know, man. A wizard did it.
Okay, fine. Oh, we can't afford that. Who do you think I am, Liz Taylor?
Well, maybe we could use it once and then return it.
Marge, we're not talking about a toothbrush here.
Ew. Aww. So, we cut back to the Simpsons home where Marge is clearly in panic mode. The way that she's acting, you would think that guests were about to arrive any moment. She's having Bart put out doilies under coasters. She's having Lisa reattach the toilet seats that she apparently put in the dishwasher, which, does that actually work? Is that a thing? I've never heard of that before. It seems kind of gross.
Maybe Simpsons did it.
Simpsons did clearly do it, but has anybody else ever done that? Please
somebody
tweet us and let us know.
Somebody else did it, Miles. That's why it had to be put in there in the first place.
I don't know. I honestly don't know if that's literally just a joke or if that's a thing that people have done in the past. I'm genuinely curious.
Well, I mean, how else would you actually clean it that quickly? You can't put it in the freaking, what's the thing that washes clothes? The clothes washer.
Well, Lisa manages to calm her mother down when she lets her know that the party's not for another 3 hours.
Oof. She's a woman after my own heart, Miles. You know how I like to be ready hours in advance.
Yeah, that's obnoxious at times, but only because you use it as an excuse constantly not to do things that you could clearly do. But that's for a different conversation. For now, we see Marge add another coat of glaze to the ham she's been preparing, and when she pulls it out of the oven, she looks like she should have used goggles, even though we know they do nothing. I feel like it probably would have helped in this case. It was
very radioactive.
So radioactively. Finally, we see Marge is upset because the candles she has does not match in height. One is very tall and one is very short. Though I don't understand why she chooses to bite it to shorten it. Like, why wouldn't she just break it with her hands?
Because she's so tense right there that her teeth strength will outweigh her hand strength easily.
I guess, but to me it just doesn't seem like it would taste good, even a little bit.
But see, Miles, you're guessing, and I'm just being factual.
Marge finally gives the kids last over, like doing the little spit shine thing that moms do, where she's rubbing the dirt off of Bart's cheeks, even though he's very much complaining. And it seems that things are actually going to go well for Marge and her party. Everything is prepared, and the only thing she asked Homer to do was to make sure that he's dressed and ready whenever the guests arrive.
Homer!
What?
Are you ready?
Yep, just gotta put my shoes on. Only we see that Homer is playing with a slot card track in the living room in his whitey tighties, which is just hilarious, because again, Marge is obviously not going to like that, and to be fair, that's pretty shitty on Homer's part. You can tell, even if, like, what Marge is stressed about seems dumb to Homer, which I assume it does, because it would seem dumb to me, I would still have to think, like, okay, but she's clearly very into this. I should at least put on some, like, shorts or something.
See, I don't think that's the way that Homer views it, though. He doesn't view it as being dumb. He just isn't paying attention, and it's not important to him, so it falls to the back burners for just a moment or two.
That's all I mean by being dumb, is it's just something that he literally doesn't care about at all. He even said in the previous scene that he hates dinner parties and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the only thing Marge asked him to do for this party was put on clothes, and he didn't do it.
Exactly. And that's when the doorbell rings, so Homer runs away, you would think, to get clothes, and Marge tells Bart to take everybody's coats and greet the guests.
And then we get the biggest conundrum of all. The first person into the party does not have a coat, Miles. My God!
Reverend Lovejoy comes in without a coat, and Bart actually yells out, "Should I let him in?" Lovejoy has to explain that his coat was stolen at last week's interfaith banquet, so he just helped himself to a few of the better umbrellas. This is a great joke in itself, but it's also an even funnier setup for what's going to be the reveal here in a minute, because the way he kind of says interfaith banquet, you can tell he's very much accusing a non-Christian, essentially, of being the one to steal his coat.
Yeah, and I don't remember if I ever caught on to this line as it comes back here in just a few moments. Like, I honestly don't remember ever connecting the dots, but when I watched it this time, I was like, holy crap! Oh my gosh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yay for subtle humor.
Yeah.
Dr. Hibbert and his family shows up. His wife is wearing a fur coat, so he actually makes a comment that, as you can see, we don't believe fur is murder, but paying for it sure is. And finally, we have the Van Houtens, and immediately you can sense a tension from Kirk and Luann that the other couples just didn't have in their voice and their mannerisms.
Sorry we're late, but Luann had to put on her face. She doesn't want anyone to know she's got no eyebrows.
And we see Luann and her eyebrows are all like cockeyed and just completely not balanced.
What? You don't?
The good news from this party is that the kids are having a great time. And I will say, this part of the episode in some ways hit me in the nostalgia bone a little bit because
Yes.
I remember back in the day when my parents would either have parties or we would go to parties, this would be how it was. Like, the kids would be off at their own table or sometimes their own room, or where I was in Kansas at times, and in the basement was always our sanctuary to get
Under
into
lock
trouble.
and key.
Not quite, but like sometimes we'd even go out and like play hide and seek and all sorts of cool stuff. But it was this great time because you got to get together and play with like all the kids that you hardly get to see, and it made for a good time.
Yeah, the scene later on where Bart and Milhouse are dressed in coats, acting stuff out, like that's the part that hit me in nostalgia. Like that, they do a very good job of like, you're bored, but somehow when you find the few kids that are there, even though he's friends with Milhouse already, maybe not with the Hibberts, they kind of form a better friendship, and you find fun in the mundane, basically.
Very much so. There's also a really fun little inside joke here when Marge asks, has anybody seen the new Woodsy Allen movie? That is, of course, a parallel to Woody Allen and Julie
What?
And Julie Kavner, the woman that plays Marge Simpson, has actually appeared in several Woody Allen movies in minor or secondary roles.
I like his films, except for that nervous fellow that's always in them. Good old Nettie.
Again, though, you can really sense the tension between the Van Houtens. Luann brings up, if you want to talk about nervous, you should have seen Kirk deal with the high school kids who egged our Bonneville.
Huh. Should have asked them to hurl some bacon. Then maybe I could have had a decent breakfast for once.
And you can start to sense that everybody else at the table is a little bit uncomfortable, except for Homer, who just proudly states, you know what you two need? A little comic strip called Love Is. It's about two naked 8-year-olds who are married.
Everyone just kind of silence.
Well, the weird thing is, Homer is absolutely right. I was not familiar with Love Is, but I looked it up for the sake of this show, and holy crap, it's creepy. It really is two naked 8-year-olds that are, like, deeply in love with each other, and it's all love is various things. Love is sacrifice. Love is helping each other put the dark times behind you. And it's just really odd the way it's drawn as naked babies.
But it also shows that Homer is very aware of what's going on. And, he might be a step or two behind everybody else because they're not talking about it, because that's kind of what you're supposed to not do. But at least he's trying to help.
That's a very good point. And it is one of those moments where Homer might not actually be in tune exactly with the situation, but he is, in his own way, aware of the situation.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting to look at this episode from Homer's point of view, actually.
Yeah.
Once everybody is done eating, Dr. Hibbert tells Marge how great the meal it was, but Kirk is still just really picking at his wife and saying a lot of things like, oh, I haven't eaten that good since I was in the army, and yeah, that's a low blow for sure. Luann is digging right back, of course, so Marge tries to break the tension and suggests that they play Pictionary. They get a giant pad out and a marker to play, and the Flanders are up first. It's Ned's turn to draw.
Oh, that's a noodle scratcher.
And he just starts putting random dots on the paper, and almost immediately Maude, cornstarch!
Oh, rightio. It's good for keeping down the urges. But he just put dots all over it, like...
Literally just random dots. Like, it could have easily been a constellation or anything else.
Anything other than cornstarch.
Right. But, again, it's sweet that Ned and Maude are so in tune with each other, I suppose.
And that Maude's not wishing death upon him at the moment.
But the Van Houtens are up next, and it doesn't quite go as smoothly. We see that Kirk has drawn something. It kind of looks like a bean, maybe. Like, it's a very unrecognizable shape. But he's more or less screaming at Luann. Oh, come on, Luann! You know what this is!
Kirk, I don't know what it is.
It could not be more simple, Luann. You want me to show this to the cat and have the cat tell you what it is? 'Cause the cat's gonna get it.
I'm sorry, I'm not as smart as you, Kirk. We didn't all go to Gudger College.
Ding! It's dignity! Gah! Don't you even know dignity when you see it?
Kirk, you're spitting.
Okay, genius. Why don't you draw dignity? So she takes the pen and paper for like a couple of seconds and immediately shows it, and everybody is like, oh wow, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Worthy of Webster's.
That's good stuff. And this fight quickly turns into what might be the most awkward dinner party in TV history at this time. Of course, it will be dethroned by The Office when they have their dinner party episode. That's way more awkward. But at this time, this is a super uncomfortable moment for everybody at the party, except for Kirk and Luann, who seem just so angry at each other, they're unaware of what's going on, and Reverend Lovejoy actually tries to step in. Now, Kirk, it's only a game. Sometimes we...
Cram it, Churchy.
Marge tries to step in and save the day as well, but Kirk is still going hot.
Why don't you tell them one of your little bedtime stories, huh? Like the one about how rotten it is to be married to a loser. Or how about the one about how I carry a change purse? Yeah, a purse.
I love Homer pipes in, shut up and let the woman talk. Okay, Kirk, I'll tell a story. It's about a man whose father-in-law gave him a sweet job as manager of a cracker factory.
Boring.
A man whose complete lack of business sense and managerial impotence...
Ooh, here we go.
Sent the number one cracker factory in town into a tie for 6th with Table Time and Allied Biscuit. And this is where we see Marge has the crackers on the table and she pours them off the plate she had them on back into the box that clearly says Allied Biscuit and tries to hide the box under the couch.
You want to hear a secret, everybody? Luann loves it. Loves it when I fail.
Oh yes, Kirk. I love having to borrow money from my sister. I love having to steal clothes from the church donation box.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
And this is the great payoff to Lovejoy realizing that it was his own faith. It was a Christian woman of his own congregation that actually stole his jacket.
Yep, I love the payoff there.
And this escalates into a complete and total meltdown of the Van Houtens until Luann actually declares, I want a divorce!
A divorce? Sure.
And you can see that Kirk in this moment, at first you can tell, he's obviously both very shook from this information and very upset by it, but there's a moment where he glances over at the couch and he sees all of the other guests at the party, and his ego or his pride takes over, so he kind of claps back a little bit.
Sure, divorce. Hey, you got it, Toots. And here's a picture even you can figure out.
He draws a door. It's a rectangle and a circle.
It's a door! Use it!
And Homer, who's just been chiming in with these great little gems this whole time, that's a door?
It's a pretty terrible door. You put the knob like right in the middle.
In the middle. It's true. This is the scene that Richie was talking about earlier where Milhouse and Bart are kind of putting on a little show for the rest of the kids. They're wearing their parents' clothing. Bart has the doctor's coat on, and Milhouse has Dr. Hibbert's wife's fur on.
Hello, I'm Dr. Hibbert. I'm afraid I'm going to have to amputate your butt.
All right, if you think you must. And Luann busts in the door and grabs Milhouse.
Come on, Milhouse, we're going.
Aw, can I come home later?
There's not going to be a home later.
Oh. And Milhouse doesn't really seem to take it like for what it is yet. He doesn't really seem to
would he?
Get what's happening. That's true. He really wouldn't know. It's a weird thing to say, but he's like, oh, okay. And then back to his character. Ta-ta! I'm off to the beauty salon.
It's one of my favorite Milhouse lines because he's so into it. He's doing a good job.
We then see the rest of the guests leave, and Homer and Marge say their goodbyes, and as soon as the door closed, Homer's like, well, I think that went pretty well.
Slam.
And we actually see Kirk get left at the curb for the party that went so well for everyone.
And then he looks back to Homer and Marge, who are watching from the doorway, and just goes, "What?"
And that is actually a pretty dark moment to end our first act on, but we are going to go ahead and take a very quick break, but we'll be right back for Act 2 of A Milhouse Divided.
Hey guys, I'm here to talk about a serious problem today. One that can affect us all, but it's also a problem that can be fixed with everyone's help. I'm Richie the Whiz Kid, and I'm talking about podcasts. So many podcasts in the Somebodies Network need your help. They are being malnourished. Some are living in terribly harsh conditions, and some are Canadian. But with your help, a corner can be turned for these poor podcasts, especially in regards to Best Darn Diddly. You can go to popthreads.com and use the code Simpsons at checkout. Or you can buy Best Darn Diddly merch at tpublic.com. Most importantly, you can go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly to donate now for as little as $1 a month. For less than 4 cents a day, you can bring a smile to these poor podcasters' faces. So let's work together to end the poverty of these podcasts. Let's be honest, you were probably just going to get a Krusty Burger with that dollar anyways. Cut to the pictures of starving podcasts.
We come back again for our second act and see Homer and Marge once again in their bed. This time, though, Marge is upset for a different reason. Marge is upset because the Van Houtens split up at their party, but Homer doesn't seem too concerned.
Marge, please, that was 20 minutes ago.
Marge is just frustrated with herself for serving those North Korean fortune cookies. They were so insulting. You're a coward. No one likes to hear that after a nice meal.
You can't keep blaming yourself. Just blame yourself once and move on.
Good advice, Homer. Good advice.
Hey, that's not half bad.
But Marge points out the real victim of this whole situation, which is Milhouse. And when we cut to Milhouse and Bart the next day on the bus, we do see that Milhouse does look a little bit sad. And to make matters worse, it looks like he's about to get bullied by Nelson. But then he takes a swerve and points out that, his mother also is left him or divorced or whatever. He actually says that she got addicted to cough drops, and by the end, her breath was so fresh that she wasn't really his mother anymore.
No, he talks about how the father left, and then the mother started getting hooked on cough drops because the father left.
Yeah, that was her answer to dealing with the pain.
That's okay. That's not too severe.
Kearney's even there to offer a little bit of moral support, though. You'll do fine. My divorce was tough on my kid, but he got over it.
I sleep in a drawer.
And Kearney's kid sounds a lot like Martin, doesn't he?
No, it sounds like Ralph to me.
That's what I meant. It's Ralph. Sorry, Ralph. Yeah. Even the I sleep in a drawer is something a Ralph would absolutely say.
Don't we all sleep in drawers, Miles?
No, not at all. I was going to try to justify that for you, but no.
We're all just being shelved as human beings, Miles. That's what Ralph was trying to say.
Deep. And this is really the only part of the episode that heavily focuses on Milhouse for the most part. There is another scene a little bit later, and I'll definitely talk more about that, but I just think it's kind of funny that the title of this episode has Milhouse in it, and usually if the character's name appears in the title, that character is heavily featured in the episode, but really, this is a lot more to do with Luann and Kirk than it does with Milhouse in general.
Well, yes, but I kind of alluded to this in the first act. I feel like it even takes a step away from that as we get into the third act, but we're going to save that tease for later.
It actually, odd moment, Josh Weinstein literally said the phrase that they decided to switch gears in the third act because it felt like if they would have continued down the same storyline, it would have been, and this is his word, masturbatory.
Okay, fair enough. I'll bring that up a little bit more later on my thoughts on that, but we definitely did a little more than a tease there. We started undressing there for you.
That's still a tease. I mean, there's still more to go.
That explains a lot from things I've seen of you over the past.
We cut back to Luann, who is with Marge, and she seems to be taking things pretty well, actually. Seems genuinely happy. She's packing up things into a box, and it seems at first that she's packing them aside for Kirk. She writes his name on them, but then, instead of, like, putting them somewhere where he might take them, she lights them on fire.
Well, specifically, Miles, she puts his shirts in a box. And this is the second setup in this episode where it will have a payoff later on with another line. And I know I'd never caught this one before. And when the payoff later, I was like, holy crap! I've seen this episode so many times, and there's 2 of these in this one that I don't notice before.
Setting them up and knocking them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love, though, Luann is actually telling Marge, from now on, forget everything you thought you knew about Luann Van Houten.
Actually, Luann, I don't really know anything about you.
Forget it! She's gone! Presto, changeo, kaboom, sweet Fanny Adams, bye-bye. We cut over to Homer and Kirk at Kirk's new apartment, and things aren't quite as great, I would say, though Kirk seems like he's trying to keep a smile on his face.
Singles life is great, Homer. I could do whatever I want. Today I drank a beer in the bathroom.
The one down the hall?
Yeah. Another great thing, you get your own bed. I sleep in a racing car, do you?
I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ouch. Again, I don't think Homer's intent is to be mean here. He's just being like almost toddler levels of honest to the point where it's painful, or might be if he was thinking about it. But I do think that does kind of hit Kirk a little bit. Like you can tell he's trying to fake that smile. But when Homer says that, it's like, oh, punch in the gut.
And memes.
But there's a knock at the door, and Kirk is excited because he's assuming it's time for another patio party. But not quite. Turns out a possum drowned in the pool, and the guys around the apartment complex are looking for garbage bags.
Just throw it over the fence. Let Arby's worry about it. That's Jerry. He's a major player down at the sewing store.
And Homer seems actually offended. Well, thanks for introducing me.
Oh, don't worry, Homer. You know me, and I'm a superstar at the Cracker Factory.
And we fade to the Cracker Factory, where Kirk is having a meeting with his boss.
You're letting me go?
Kirk, crackers are a family food. Happy families. Maybe single people eat crackers. We don't know. Frankly, we don't want to know. It's a market we can do without.
So that's it. After 20 years. So long, good luck?
I don't recall saying good luck. And when it rains, it pours on poor Kirk Van Houten.
Yep.
Next, we get the only other scene that Milhouse is in that I'm recalling off the top of my head, and it's actually Milhouse driving a mini car around the inside of the house. He's crashing into things. He's declaring himself the winner of the Milhouse 500, smashing all around the living room, knocking over pots and plants and all sorts of things. Luann calls from the other room.
Milhouse, are you sure you want to drive that inside?
Yes.
Okay, be careful, sweet, sweet treasure.
And this, of course, is somewhat making fun of the concept of the parallels that divorced children often will go through. And this is actually really leftover from a bigger deleted scene. Because Milhouse was actually intended to be a bigger part of this episode than he ended up being. But unfortunately, due to time restraints, and then for what we'll get into in the third act and all of the things that we already talked about, they had to do a lot of trimming. But there was originally going to be a plot where Bart was actually jealous from his perspective. It seemed like the divorce was great because now Milhouse was getting more love and admiration through the form of gifts and presents from both of his parents, and Bart would be excited about the concepts of like milking 2 birthdays and 2 Christmases and all of those types of things. But that was cut down entirely to just the 2 sequences we see with Bart on the bus with Milhouse and then Bart at Milhouse's mom's house with the race car.
Well, and you definitely see the divorce angst of Milhouse here, or the acting out, where it's like he's seeking that like attention and love and unity that's not there, I guess, if you want to get really deep into it. That I will say, Miles, as a child of divorce, which really did not have any kind of impact on my life whatsoever because I had 2 very loving parents. The double Christmases and birthday things, fantastic. But I do, my parents divorced when I was 5, and first of all, don't ever tell your mother when you're older that the first memory you have that you vividly remember is when she told you she was divorcing your father. I was 5. That's the earliest memory I have that I can actually recall. But apparently I was kind of angry after that, and I don't remember it at all. But apparently I would like slap my mother and like try to swing at her when I was 5. I don't remember any of it at all. But yeah, she said I definitely went through a phase where like I was the Milhouse driving the car, breaking everything.
Sure, and admittedly, from my perspective as a child that did not have divorced parents, I do actually remember having those same feelings that they described giving Bart, where I would see it from the outside and think like, oh man, it must be so cool to have 2 Christmases and 2 birthdays, and not really think of the other side of that coin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, as an immature child that doesn't really have the ability to think about all aspects of the emotional trauma.
You'd have to go to the grocery store twice. That sucked. But you know what? You don't tell your parent that your other parent bought you a toy in the toy aisle, and you try to pull it off again.
Nice.
Completely forgetting that parents talk to each other.
That's funny.
I feel like sounded like I'm a terrible human being to my mother. I love my mother very much.
Fair enough. This whole conversation is interrupted when the doorbell rings once again, and we find out that Luann now has a new boyfriend. His name is Chase, and he's a full-time stuntman, part-time American Gladiator. I love that Bart and Milhouse both recognize him and are fans of him on the show, and he actually lets Bart smash a chair over his back, as that's a pretty standard stunt. Then he takes Luann out for a night on the town in his vehicle of choice, one of those steel balls that they play with on American Gladiators where you're running around trying to, like, hit the pods for points.
That has to get very tiring going around town in that.
Not if you're an American Gladiator, Richie.
But Luann's not.
Maybe she will be by the end of this episode. We said that the third act goes in weird places, right?
There you go. I guess she'd be Laser because she's Luann. Okay, yeah.
Nice. Well, Bart is inspired by this standard stunt when he gets back to his house because Homer is taking a bath and Bart randomly goes up and hits him over the back with a chair. Homer gets obviously angry about this, screams, "Ouch! Why the hell would you do that? What is wrong with you?"
Jeez, sorry. It's a pretty standard stunt, Homer.
We hear Marge calls up from downstairs saying that, or reminding Homer that they agreed to go out with Luann and Chase, but Homer says that he really doesn't want to.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go hear Spalding Gray. Who doesn't want to go hear that? Or them, or that person that I don't know.
You said you'd do it as a favor to me.
That doesn't sound like something I'd say.
Fine, I'll go without you.
Okay, love ya.
And I don't think Homer quite notices the tone in Marge's voice that is drippingly obvious at this point, but Homer's pretty dense. We see Homer enter Moe's Tavern, where Kirk is now there with a new girlfriend himself named Starla.
Hey, sugar, can I get the car keys? I feel like changing wigs.
And this is another character done by Tress MacNeille, who's just a wonderful voice actor for The Simpsons, and this is a great little gag because this bar floozy takes Kirk's keys, and as Kirk is explaining to Homer that she works for a radio station and is going to help him with his music career, we hear the car engine start up and the tires squeal out. Kirk runs out worried just in time to see Starla throwing something out of the car that crashes and breaks on the concrete.
Oh, my demo tape!
Homer picks it up and there's a picture of Kirk on it and it says, "Can I borrow a feeling?" Can I borrow a feeling? and that's your picture on the front.
Go ahead, Homer. Laugh at me.
I already did.
I can't lie to you, Miles. I have used that "I already did" line my entire life. Sometimes somebody goes, well, do this, do this. I already did. It works for so many scenarios.
It really does. But Kirk is honestly way past the point about caring about Homer laughing at him, because he's kind of hitting rock bottom here. He's starting to realize his situation. Even says, one day your wife is making you your favorite meal, and the next day you're thawing a hot dog in a gas station sink.
Oh, that's tough, pal. But it's never gonna happen to me.
Oh yeah? How do you know? What makes you so special?
'Cause Marge and I have one thing that can never be broken. A strong marriage built on a solid foundation of routine.
That sounds sound. We see Homer then entering his home later. It's clearly dark out, so it must be nighttime. And Homer immediately calls out, "Marge, I'm home. Where are you? Are you okay? I don't smell dinner." That's when he finds a note on the fridge from Marge. "Dear Homer, Aww. Sorry you didn't want to join me tonight. I left you hot dogs for dinner. They're thawing in the sink."
Dun, 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 dun.
Ah! And Homer realizes that the thing that he thought could never possibly happen to him just sort of did. I mean, he's not at a gas station, but he is about to eat hot dogs that are still thawing themselves in the sink.
No, Miles, say it ain't so.
And that's how we're going to leave you, with that note of tension. What will happen? We don't know. We mentioned the third act gets crazy.
The hot dogs will probably be eaten.
Sentient hot dogs. You heard it here first. And we'll be right back to talk about it in our third act right after a quick break. Hi, I'm Mr. Most Days Off. You might remember me from such podcasts as the 50th Podcast Celebration Show and the Michael Price interview. I brought a friend along today to talk to you about an exciting new product.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Richie the Whiz Kid.
Miles, did you know that most people don't know where to get cool pop culture shirts?
I had no idea.
If you go to popthreads.com, you'll find a great selection of t-shirts, and if you use the discount code Simpsons, you could save 15% on your order. And that's good news for everybody.
That is good news for everybody.
And did you know the shirts are also inflammable?
Richie, that means they catch on fire.
I had no idea.
Help support the Best Darn Diddly Review Show by using our discount code Simpsons at popthreads.com. And do try to stay away from open flames.
Bye, everybody.
We come back for our final act of a Milhouse Divided to a very disturbed Homer who is sitting on the kitchen floor, kind of shaking and looking like a nervous mess, dipping single hot dogs into a jar of mustard and eating them bite by bite. Lisa comes in and opens the fridge and points out, there are buns in the cabinet.
Lisa, I need your help. I know you're only 8 years old, and I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but you gotta save my marriage.
Oh, okay. Can I stay up?
All right.
So clearly it's past Lisa's bedtime. And Homer, once again, starts just divulging way too much information on his poor 8-year-old daughter.
Yet, she is the smartest person he knows, so...
It both is the right choice and the wrong choice, and all at the same time. It's actually quite impressive. Homer actually says to Lisa that he knows that the word divorce has been thrown around a lot lately, but he's afraid that Marge is going to want one from him.
You've done a lot of crazy stuff over the years, and she stood by you. Why would she leave you now?
'Cause there's a lot of stuff she doesn't know about.
You mean, like your poker shack out in the swamp?
Uh-huh.
She knows.
I look so terrified.
I have a really long, drawn-out plot insertion here, Miles. When was the last time we saw Homer playing poker?
Wasn't it when they got busted in the car hole?
And what was that all about?
Pants?
Counterfeit jeans, Miles. So Homer is actually the Breaking Bad evil genius behind all of this and moves it out to the shack. And I literally had this thought while I was watching this scene, and then literally we're going to have a flashback scene here in a few minutes or a few seconds, and Homer sees something in his younger age that will give him the idea for his empire. Stay tuned.
Okay. Well, we do actually jump right to this flashback when Homer explains that their whole marriage started off on the wrong foot. And we actually get a flashback from the episode I Married Marge, and it's the scene where they're actually announcing their vows at the, wedding chapel in Vegas, I think it was. They get $10 in chips after they say I do.
Then you, boom, Homer, take you, boom, Marge.
But then what I really love about this is they don't just keep going with the flashback sequence. They use the flashback and then they immediately build on it, because the next sequence is brand new, but it plays immediately after this sequence that we just saw from the flashback. And it's actually Homer explaining, see, you don't need to spend a lot of money to have a first-class wedding reception. And he opens a box that has a Fudgy the Whale cake in it that says you're a whale of a wife, and it's just the two of them sitting outside of a fast food joint. I guess that's Dairy Queen that does that.
I was never a Fudgy the Whale person,
maybe?
so I'm not sure where that's from. That's an Office thing too, isn't it?
They reference it in a lot of things, but it's an actual product, the Fudgy the Whale cakes. It's an ice cream cake.
It's getting less and less likely you're going to yell surprise and have all my friends jump out.
And then
honk, honk.
In this moment, Homer is fascinated by a what truck that passes by, Richie?
A Levi's truck.
Hey, you think that truck is full of jeans?
Huh. It all ties together.
And when we cut back to the present, Lisa just very solemnly declares, "You're very lucky to have Mom," and then walks away. Homer just pauses for a moment before looking disappointed.
That's your advice? Go to bed!
But Homer thinks a little bit longer, and he gets an idea. He's going to just layer on the love with Marge, and he's going to start right away. He greets her in bed, but unfortunately Marge is actually still sleeping at this time, so he might have jumped the gun just a little bit.
You know, Marge, I was thinking about how much I enjoy your interest, so I wandered over to that theater you went to last night, and I bought tickets to their entire season. Look, mostly madrigals. Yeah, that might be good. Ooh, an evening with Philip Glass? Just an evening? Voices of the elderly poor?
I know that Philip Glass is well known for opera as well as writing music for several movies, but there were people, when I was doing research on this joke, I found people that were laughing about this joke, but I could not, even with explanation, understand why it was funny. Perhaps you have to be more familiar with the orchestra to get it.
You gotta be in the business to get the business.
Sure, yeah. Homie, I appreciate this, but I'd really like to get some sleep.
Oh, of course, my sweet. I'll just make some soothing ocean sounds for you. Whoosh. Whoosh. Ew. Ew. Ka, 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 ka. Whoosh. Ew. Armity.
He hit all of them, to be fair.
The first few times I saw this episode, I did that all the time at school. The freaking squawking bird and the Long John Silver. Just
Arr.
I mean, it's accurate.
Again, this is another sequence where Homer's heart is in the right place, but god damn it, he's an idiot sometimes. He decides he's going to make an attempt to connect with her at a place that is very special to Marge. Her hairstylist. She is getting her hair done, and Homer essentially taps...
Whoa, Miles. What's the name of the salon?
The Perm Bank. Good call. So Marge is making her usual visit to the Perm Bank, a place that Homer's never been. And Homer essentially taps out the hairstylist and takes over, immediately starting to cut chunks out of Marge's hair. And Marge even calls out, like, aren't you taking out a lot? Marge pretty quickly realizes that it's Homer and that he's actually destroying her hair, and of course gets really pissed off about it. Again, Homer's trying to do the right thing here, but he's not really making good moves at all. Marge gets pissed and tells Homer to leave, and as he's walking out, he realizes a few clumsy gestures aren't going to make up for 10 years of neglect, and Marge deserves a fresh start. And we cut to something we never thought we would see, and that is Homer filing for divorce. He goes to the Springfield city offices and goes to the court clerk and says, I'd like to file for divorce.
These things happen. $8.
I love how it's that easy.
And that cheap, apparently. I don't remember that happening.
That cheap. It doesn't take both parties. There's a lot happening in the Springfield divorce courts, I guess.
And I guess this is a good time to go ahead and throw this out there because we've been alluding to it the whole podcast. This episode, to me, feels like we started with an A plot of Milhouse's family and a smaller B plot with the Simpsons family. Then they kind of went even keel, and now all of a sudden it feels like the B plot is the A plot, and the original A plot is now the B plot. Like, I've never really seen that in an episode before, but the B plot has very much taken over the story.
There's a weird weaving of how these plots, because a lot of times what we have is the B plot gets immediately dropped after the first act, or sometimes the second, and then it just changes gear entirely. But everything about this episode is still very active. Nothing has been dropped. It's still there. It's just the importance or the spotlight has shifted to different characters.
Well, at this point, you're like, I guess I care about Milhouse's family, but Marge and Homer, no! Resolve it now.
Yeah, it feels like they up the stakes by putting the same tension on characters you care a lot more about.
Yeah.
So later we see Marge is coming home with the kids, and she's actually very proud of Bart for only having 3 cavities. His best checkup ever. I'm gonna make you my specialty, butterscotch chicken.
Why?
I wonder how he got the cavities.
Why?
But then very solemnly from the other room, we hear Homer call out, Marge, we need to talk. And Marge looks clearly shaken again, like upset, because that never is a good thing, right? When you hear somebody that you're in a relationship say the term, we need to talk, it's almost always going to be bad.
We need to talk, Miles.
Marge walks into the other room, and she is very pleasantly surprised by a surprise party. It's all of the guests, all the people she cares about,
surprise!
Even her mom is there. Her mom, her sisters, a lot of people that she knows are there, and Homer, who's actually dressed up, gets down on one knee and says, Marge, will you marry me?
Why? Am I pregnant?
That's another joke. It was really up there. I don't know why that makes me laugh so hard. But Homer explains, no, honey, it's a second wedding. Our first one is so crummy, I had to make it up to you. I really love you.
Oh, homie, I know you love me. We don't need to get married again.
Oh, yes, we do. I got us a divorce this afternoon.
What?
I didn't want a hokey second wedding like those ones on TV.
True story.
So, Homer continues saying that he doesn't want their marriage to end up like the Van Houtens. And the worst part is you can see Kurt overhears this in the background.
And Marge looks so happy, and she's like, it never will.
And we cut to their second wedding with Reverend Lovejoy. Dearly beloved.
Wait! I want one last chance to enjoy single life. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Okay, ready.
And I love that Homer scratches his butt and belches, which clearly we've never seen him do because he's always been married in every scene we've seen him in up until this point, right?
Did he scratch his butt with the same hand that he grabbed Marge's hand with?
Oh, I didn't notice, but that makes it equally or even more funny. I will now read these special vows which Homer has prepared for this occasion. Do you, Marge, take Homer in richness and in poorness is underlined, in impotence and in potence, in quiet solitude, or blasting across the Acaley Flats in a jet-powered, monkey-navigated, and it goes on like this.
I wanted to hear more of his vows.
Yeah, I agree, but I think the funniest part about it is when Homer is just like, it doesn't matter. But Marge, of course, says that she will, and Homer does as well. Lovejoy pronounces them husband and wife. At the reception, one of the Doobie Brothers actually steps into play, and they start playing the song True, which is a very famous dance song that they play at any formal event where there's dancing.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
And in this moment, there's a talk about, like, I think it's Homer is talking to Marge about how it's such a special night where anything can happen and love is in the air and all this good stuff. And Kirk is actually inspired in this moment, and he actually grabs the microphone and decides to give it everything he's got. He sings his single that got destroyed by his floozy girlfriend, Can I Borrow a Feeling?
Can I borrow a feeling? Could you lend me a jar of love? Hurting hearts need some healing. Take my hand with your glove of love. Do 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 do. How about it, Luann?
And he really does sing that poorly for what it's worth.
Yeah, that wasn't me singing. Like
I don't know if Richie did it justice with just how bad it was.
I feel like it was pretty accurate.
But Kirk then approaches Luann after pouring his heart and soul out.
How about it, Luann? Will you marry me again?
And this is the moment that in any TV show in history, they would reconcile and get back together and realize that they were meant to be and all this good stuff. And the Simpsons writers specifically said when they decided to make this episode, if they do it, they're not doing it that way. That they will, in fact, keep these characters separated and it will affect the show moving forward. And that's exactly what they did. Because in this moment where you expect Luann to say, "Oh, Kirk, I love you too," she says, "Oh, no."
Oh, well, can I have my shirts back at least? No, you can't because she burned them.
Because they're gone. And in that moment, Luann's new boyfriend Chase steps in and grabs Kirk and escorts him out. "Okay, you heard the lady. Why don't you take it outside, alright?"
I'll be back.
Slam!
Probably.
And I love that joke because it's so self-aware in the sense that at this point, I don't think the Simpsons writers really knew how much Kirk would be in the picture. So the fact that they kind of left it at probably is like, well, we might reference this again, or we might not, but they are definitely divorced.
Or we might do an episode seasons down the road where they actually get back together and get married again.
It's all possible. For now, though, that brings us to the end of our third act, and the theme music plays. It's in the style of a mellow 1970s love ballad. However, there was actually a different original plan for this end credit sequence. At one point, they were in talks with Sheryl Crow to come in and sing Can I Borrow a Feeling over the end credits. Plans fell through, things didn't work out, they weren't able to come to an agreement for whatever reason, and they ended up just going with the changed Simpsons theme that they usually use, but in the different style. And I think it was very fitting. It worked out, and it kind of was fun just to leave the Can I Borrow a Feeling. The only time we ever hear that song is in the really shitty version we hear it sung by Kirk Van Houten.
And it's the original creator's voice, the way it should be.
The way it should be. So, Rich, is there anything else about a Milhouse Divided that you or that book want to talk about?
Well, my book brought up the perm bank, which I thought was quite hilarious, as we all know already. My book also points out that according to the sign in front of the Southern Cracker Company, it says the dry cracker. I don't know if that's funny or not, but I guess that kind of makes my mouth water and my throat hurt a little bit. So that's all we have. other than the Plato's Republic Casino out at the Shotgun Pete's Wedding Chapel. So that's where they got married.
Very cool. I pretty much said everything that I wanted to about this episode as well. I will just mention one last time, though. I'm always blown away by the way The Simpsons is able to take a subject matter that is, by all definitions, sad. I mean, divorce is not a happy-go-lucky time for anybody in any circumstance, really. And the fact that they're able to take that subject matter and make it so funny, because there are so many good jokes in this episode. Very reminiscent of episodes in the past, such as maybe One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish, or Bluefish, Blowfish. Things like that, where they're taking this heavy subject matter, and it's all about that trifecta we commonly talk about with the art, the heart, and the smart, and mixing it all together into this perfect stew that we call The Simpsons.
Well, also, you got to talk about divorce isn't the easiest subject to do a TV episode on, especially at this point in the 90s where, it's not openly and frequently talked about as it is by today's standards. So I applaud them for going down that route and then keeping that route up until they get remarried again, like I already alluded to seasons later.
Yeah, the boldness to go with that decision to divorce them and keep them divorced, at least for the immediate future.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. Well, that will do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly review show. Thank you again so much for tuning in. As always, we always appreciate it when you join us on this journey through The Simpsons, the Golden Age, and beyond.
You can follow him at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow me at @thewiz_kid23. But most importantly, if you're only going to follow one thing, follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY, and it works all over social media.
Make sure you come back again and join us next week. The Wiz Kid and I will be back again to review another very tender episode, Lisa's Date with Density.
And Miles and I will be back. You know why? Because we have one thing that can never be broken. A strong podcast built on a solid foundation of routine.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.